Sing along with me. Let's do it. Never, never, never gonna get Professor X. Boo hoo hoo hoo. That's right. I got to test Professor X on the playtest server, and yes, he's bonkers. He's bonkers. He's really, really, really good. I'm gonna go over my general experience with him. We're also gonna go over the kit, and I'll just put it like this. Mephisto, for example, was very, very disruptive and the strongest character of the game when Mephisto came out, and the players that got Mephisto early definitely were in a situation of have and have nots. Winners in Crucible. It was an uphill battle to beat a Mephisto player when you did not have Mephisto. Arena, yeah. You either had Mephisto or you didn't. And even to the extent when Mephisto came to the game, like if you're in Alliance War, hey, they got 6 Mephistos, we've only got 2, we're probably gonna lose. I feel like Professor X is going to be equally as disruptive as Mephisto was when he came to the game. He's gonna be the strongest character. So, what did I test? I'm not gonna get into very specific details on how he worked, but he's bonkers, and I'm gonna explain why he's bonkers, and I'm gonna share my general experience with Professor X. I primarily was testing him in Alliance War, because you can go into Alliance War and you can test it out there very easily. And I was going into battle exclusively with Professor X and 4 minions. I'm dead serious. I was going into battle with Professor X and 4 minions. And my experience was that if an overpowered situation existed, like he's at 10 and my opponents had some 9s, he wiped them. It was 1 versus 5. At least the matchups I tried, he 1v5'd all of those teams. And I think that might be a situation because I think people are going to be taking Professor X to gear tier 20 very quickly. And this is going to create overpowered situation. And my experience is that he was running over teams that had lower powered when the overpowered situation was coming into play. Now, when I took Professor X with 4 minions against teams that were all at 10, so there was no overpowered situation, he was most of the time 1v5ing them. Not every time, but in a lot of situations, he was 1v5ing that team. So what I'm trying to get at is he is very strong. Now, there are some things in some of the newer team kits that are going to be favorable to playing against Professor X, and a lot of that's clearly stated here in the passive. Before we get into that, first things, until this character completes a turn, so this is before Professor X takes a turn, enemies cannot assist. There's a bunch of situations there. Odin, Null, Old Man Logan. Enemies cannot gain taunt, speed up, or defense up, and allies cannot gain darkness or slow. There you go. All character speed bar can only be filled or reduced by normal means. So that is like Captain Britain, right? On defense inside of Crucible, right? Or just anywhere in Crucible, right? On enemy turn, mind control that enemy to attack the enemy with the highest damage. Apply defense down. The controlled character gains 50% damage for the attack, reduces the max health of the target by the amount of damage done. Before the mind control, clear barrier on the enemy with the highest damage. Fill this character's speed bar by 15%, flip defense down. Now, what I did not think about is what about teams that have mixed overpowered and you're attacking your own teammates? If you have overpowered situation there, is that even boosting the damage even more? I believe so. And I think that was when I was testing this, there were some teams that were half 9, half 10. And I think this was actually one of the reasons why they were getting deleted. It was because the team he was playing up against was half and half. Not 100% certain on that, but I think that's exactly how it works. When you're mind controlled and you have a higher overpowered than someone else on your team, get wrecked, nerd. This doesn't affect all teams. Some teams have anti-mind control type mechanics. So if you look at like Shadow King and Astral, and this is kind of an anti-null thing also, when forced to attack an ally, this character deals less damage to those allies. So there are going to be teams and characters that are not going to be drastically affected by this mind control, because this is very powerful. After any character uses their ultimate ability, so this happens passively, this character does not have exhausted. Bury yourself and all allies for 15% of the character's max health. Reduce the duration of all negative effects on self by 1. It's dropping down even trauma. Heal self for 10% of this character's max health for each negative effect that expired. Enemies with defense down that normally cannot gain trauma now can gain trauma. So there's a couple things where that comes into play. I think it's specifically an arena call out. In arena, if this character has any mythic enemies cannot have their max health increased through passive abilities. That is a huge screw up to characters like Mephisto. Mephisto's passive, a large chunk of his health is from the passive. Gain 50% max health. Allies gain 20% health. So that is a Mephisto feature. Also Apocalypse. Also Super Scroll. See? So that's a thing right there. Odin does not have that. Null does not have that. So that's going to be a thing in arena. And this is also one of the reasons why I think that it's going to be a have not situation in arena with Professor X, is because of that specifically right there. Now, the way the match plays out is that they take turns. People before him takes turns. They get blown up sometimes just because of the mind control feature, and the team across from you is just kind of like cannibalizing. It kind of feels like zombie Iron Man, and they're just getting wiped, right? Then he finally takes a turn. I'm just gonna put it out like this. It's probably deleting somebody with this move right here. Apply disrupted and trauma. The primary or adjacent targets or control enemies apply ability block. Oh, let's start at the top. Do the following to self and all allies if this character does not have 2 or more exhausted. Clear 1 exhausted and exposed. Reduce the duration of all negative effects by 2. So that's like Shadow King. That's also going to get through trauma. Heal for 30% of this character's max health. Do the following to the primary and adjacent targets. So he could be going in, in a 5v5 situation where he's going to hit 3 targets, the primary and the 2 adjacents. Reduce the duration of all positive effects by 2 and clear all charge. So get wrecked, safeguard. That's kind of like in-game Thanos right there, where he's dropping that down. Apply defense down for 2 turns and blind for 2 turns. And if they're not getting deleted, they're going to have blind. Apply disrupted and trauma. If the primary or adjacent targets or control enemies, apply ability block to that character. Mind control any 2 characters with the most damage to attack the primary target. Controlled characters gain 100% damage. This damage reduces the max health of the target by the same amount. So I'm just going to say there are going to be situations where this deletes people. Absolutely deletes people, right? And I'll just put it like this. You know, this is going to clear battlefield effects on allied side. The attack is unavoidable, cannot be blocked or counterattacked. Then Cyclops Age of X is going to pop up. And my experience was that he was going immediately after Cyclops, and he was cleaning up. He was absolutely cleaning up the stuff that didn't die. Apply vulnerable and defense down to the 2 most injured non-summon, non-primary targets, ignoring stealth. Called 2 random allies to each attack one of the previous enemies. Attack to the primary target for damage. So even if you've got a situation where he can only target like a taunter, let's say, the ones that are weakened by the initial attacks of Professor X are getting cleanup on aisle 6. Devastating. And then I'm just gonna put it out there. Eventually, Professor X does his ultimate, following that shenanigans, right? And a lot of times this was just ending the match. Flip offense down on self, clear barrier on all enemies, reduce the duration of all positive effects on all enemies by 2, attack all enemies that are under 25% for 25% of the target's max health. This ignores death proof and passives that trigger when a character drops below certain health. Attack all other enemies for piercing damage. This damage reduces the max health of the target by the same amount. Characters killed by this attack cannot be revived. This attack is unavoidable and cannot be blocked or counterattacked. Now, I was doing very specific types of matchups where it was essentially 1 versus 5s. Well, if you count Cyclops, it's 2 versus 5s. And a lot of times this was the end of the match. A lot of times, not every time. I'm gonna say probably more than half of the matchups that I tested personally, this was the end of the match. Very few of the matches I lost. Very few of the matches did I even get to this right here, doing basic attacks. Attack primary target for damage, flip immunity, and one additional positive effect, negative effect, apply slow and bleed. The primary target has disrupted, apply blind. This character has ability block, reduce the speed bar of the primary target by 60%, clear 2 negative effects from this character. If any negative effects are removed, heal self for 10% of this character's max health per negative effect removed, gain evade and offense up. When this character performs an ISO attack, counterattack, or an assist, this attack does no additional effects besides damage. When forced to attack an ally, this character deals less damage to those allies. This attack is unavoidable and cannot be blocked or counterattacked. So, what did I experience as far as weaknesses? Something I noticed, he can be stunned. He can be put disrupted. There were situations where I was on offense and I was stunned and let's say there was trauma. But what would happen a lot of times is that my enemy would ultimate, and the ultimate would actually clear that away. So I think there might be a way of stunning him. And then as long as I'm mindful of not doing an ultimate ability, then he's going to miss his turn. But the mind control thing is still popping off, right? After any character uses their ultimate ability, if this character does not have exhausted, bury yourself and all allies for 15% of this character max health. Reduce the duration of all negative effects on self by 1. It's going to get rid of the stun. Heal self for 10% of this character's max health for each negative effect that expired. So I did see stun slipping away off of him because of this mechanic, but this stuff was still popping off. It just was popping off. Anyways, in conclusion, yes, he's strong. He definitely is a mythic. I don't have any clear ideas on specifically how to beat him, but I know that he's going to be disruptive. Can't wait to show you test footage, gameplay footage, when I get to present that. But he's strong. That's it. Bye for now.